This is iFanboy Pick of the Week 763, brought to you by Mac Weldon. For 20% off your first order, visit macweldon.com/iFanboy. Enter the promo code iFanboy. And iFanboy listeners just like you who are washing their hands and wearing their masks. Hello, welcome to iFanboy Pick of the Week, episode 763. My name is Conor Kilpatrick, and this is my co-host, Josh Flanagan.
That is me. That is your name. I have done the research because you can't trust anybody lately.
Right.
I confirmed your identity.
You have sources.
You have a little blue check mark in my head.
Great. We are iFanboy, and every week we read a bunch of comics, and one of us picks their favorite. We call it the Pick of the Week. We'll talk about that book. We'll talk about other books from the week. We'll talk about the Patron Pick. We answer some listener mail if we have time. We'll definitely have time this week, and we'll have some fun. Here's your spoiler warning. This is a review show. This week, Josh, I thought I had it bad last week, and then this week happened. And
That's
you had
right.
to pick.
So I've been wondering, is something wrong with comics or is it us? But the fact is that it's not just me or just you, but something's going on. I know there's the two events that are going on that neither of us are very invested in, the two major publishers. But even outside of that, for a while, it's felt like a bit of a drought. Have you noticed this?
Yes, but also you just had nothing to choose from. I think I had 12 books on my list, and 7 of those were Future State books. If you take over the Future State books, I read like 5 books.
I ended up with 13 books at the end. I made an effort to sort of go and figure out, what else I could read. In fact, you'll see some things on the script that I haven't been reading previously. So there is that. Anyway, the pick of the week is King in Black, Thunderbolts #1. So right away, I'm not reading King in Black. I don't really like it as a concept, as an overall thing. But slim pickings and all, I went through and I was like, well, who's doing these books? That's how I decided to pick on it rather than like what character or what thing. I was like, well, who's making the books? Let's see what people are doing. And this was by a person who I did not put in the script correctly, but I can tell you that it is Matthew Rosenberg. And the art I don't have in front of me.
Juan Ferreira,
exactly. I screwed up on the script, everybody at home. That's how that happens, which I did at 1 a.m. And that's how that also happens. I like the Thunderbolts. I always have when written correctly, kind of regardless of who the characters are. It can be a really fun concept still. And, this team was, let's see, Taskmaster, Mr. Fear, who both have similar masks, which is touched on.
Yes.
Batroc, Zilibert. So far, all good things. Actually, I have no idea who Mr. Fear is. Star from the sort of Captain Marvel spinoff. Very, very powerful new villain girl.
Oh, yes, right. Oh, interesting. That's interesting.
Some electric-based character with a mohawk, and then some other lady. The point is, a lot of these people are killed pretty quickly. Basically, Wilson Fisk has hired these folks, has taken them out of the prisons, and wherever Taskmaster is in another book in here, who gives a shit? He's taken them out of the prisons, and he said, all right, I need you to go kill Null, who is the overall sort of god who is in charge, who's trying to kill all of Earth and life and everything, is the King in Black. And if you get him, I'm going to pay you, and you'll be free, and everything will be good. You have to sign this non-disclosure agreement. And they say, ooh, how do we do that? And he goes, not my problem. And so they send them out into the world, and I think actually Juggernaut's there too. Or no, Rhino. And several of them just take off. I'm not doing this. And they go. And at the end, it just leaves sort of a core team of Taskmaster and Batroc and Star. That's sort of where it ends up. It was fun. It was, that's that same kind of... Matthew Rosenberg tends to do this pretty well. I read another story of his this week, and I think that he has a voice. It's the same thing that fits really well with those Hawkeye books with Clint Barton and Bucky. It's a kind of banter. And it's not unlike how Bendis has a voice when he has all his characters together. And I think if you step back, it could feel repetitive, but it doesn't. Whatever it is, he's got a bit of a thing with his patter. And then you combine that with what are pretty good instincts with story structure and sort of moving things along in a fun way and having stakes and all that stuff. And at the same time, I actually really dug the art. I wasn't sure that I knew the artist. I don't know. Do you recognize that name? I think maybe he did.
I've seen the name before for sure.
I was going to say, I think he did the Kingpin series that Rosenberg did. I'm not sure about that. I'm 50% on that. Either way, it was sort of a different take on comic book art, and it's almost painterly, a little exaggerated and cartoony in a way that doesn't look like other stuff. And also, I think one of the fun things that happens in comic books that I always really like is when things happen at scale. You've got a bunch of human-sized people, and then there's a massive dragon they have to fight. And when artists play with that stuff, I'm always a big fan of that. In general, I don't love the whole Earth is under siege by, because it's the same story.
Mm-hmm.
It's exactly the same story as Empire, in a way, which is exactly the same story as the War of the Realms.
Right.
It's all of Earth is being attacked by an alien army. It's literally in the same event 3 times in a row. The backstory is different, but end of the day,
there's only so many major events kind of storylines. It's not any different than Secret Invasion or whatever. And it's at a certain point, it's like, what is large enough to put people together? It's the only thing really is to repel invasion. So there's really not much they can do.
These are the people whose creative minds are in charge of doing that thing and making it interesting. I'm just pointing out parallels. And never underestimate the idea of a zeitgeist contributing to this.
I'm very curious about Star, because if I recall from the end of that miniseries that we really, really liked, we weren't sure about her intentions, motivations, characterizations, because it was kind of somewhat unclear whether she was going to go full villain or not. And has she gone full villain, or is that what is the deal?
I think she was just in prison. I don't know. I mean, it's
remember she walked away. She walked away at the end and sort of zapped somebody. We weren't sure if she was being a jerk or.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think part of the character is that she's not sure. I think there's an instinct. She's not outright evil, like I want to take over the world and destroy people, but she wants to be left alone.
Who doesn't? Right.
And, having spoken with Kelly Thompson for quite a while, I think that there's a little of her sort of thinking in there sometimes about seeing people and she just wants to be left alone to do her thing. It's kind of interesting because she also at the same time has this incredible, amount of power. Like she's the heavy on this team. And what's funny is that none of them know who she is. Right. And then she blasts the head off one of the dragons and at the same time, you've got Taskmaster in here and we are in danger of explaining the thing that we love too much. Taskmaster is wonderful when there's not much about him. The silly concept in comic books works best when we don't look into it too much. So the more that he shows up and the more character development that there is, the worse it is. But in all things, if it's entertaining, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And so in this, he really does kind of take on the Captain America role. He's like, well, we agreed to do the thing and, we have to defend the Earth. So let's, he's kind of,
the honorable mercenary role.
Yeah, which is what he's becoming in general. Well, he wasn't that in Amazing Spider-Man. He was a ruthless cutthroat turncoat in that one where Kraven had all the animals in the park and everything. He turned on the Ant-Man guy. So it just depends on how he's being written.
Sure.
It works this way in this one. And it works in that Taskmaster miniseries that's going on right now. I really like that a lot.
It's kind of a middle ground between the two.
Yeah, but it's again, if it works in the story, I don't care. I want them to pull back a little bit. It's funny because I was going to say famously, but that's not the right word. But it's a bit I do where I talk about Wedge Antilles, hero of the rebellion.
It's not a bit; it's what you believe.
It is what I believe, but at the same time, I don't want to delve deeply into the Wedge Antilles mythos.
No,
it's
you
much
don't need
more
to know his backstory. I don't want to know his childhood.
Yeah, that'll ruin it.
Yeah,
they'll just have it be this thing that we've decided to put a lot of attention on, which honestly probably not narratively deserved.
Can we talk about Wedge for a second? I was watching over the weekend. Yes. TBS was doing Star Wars weekend, so they had all the movies playing in order, and I hadn't sat down and watched the originals in a while, and I watched most of Empire and most of Jedi because I came on in the middle. Gosh, those are great movies, and also there's the moment in Jedi when Wedge shows up. I was just so satisfied. It's like yes, yeah, so good.
Rogue leader. I mean, he's an excellent pilot. He's a leader. And I can say all these things about him, and you're like, Josh, there's no basis for that. And I'm like, exactly, and that's what makes it fun.
And they call him Wedge. They don't call him by his call sign because that's the level of respect he's at.
Wedge may as well be his. I don't know. Is it even a nickname? I don't want to know. Don't send me an email with his Wikipedia entry. Tell me about it. It's much more fun to devote yourself to a completely shallow characterization.
So the question is, are you going to read more of King of Black Thunderbolts, or is this just a one-off because the week was terrible?
No, I'm definitely invested. I will read the rest of this series. It's fun. I really like Matthew Rosenberg's writing. I had him on Talksplode, I think, last year. It's fun. The fact is, if every single book is this thing, but sort of weaving in and out of it, it's interesting because it's working for me in reverse order with that. It used to be that when an event came along, I would think, well, do I have to read all these books to enjoy the event? And now the question is, which books can I read and enjoy that are part of the event? And I've decided that's the approach I'm going to take to this thing.
Good.
Yeah. I was pretty far into my, not tiny, but, smallish stack. And I thought, I got nothing. And I got to this and I realized I was having fun with it. And I was like, oh, I got something here. This is good. So, yeah, that's your pick of the week. And it's not really with a qualification other than there wasn't a lot of competition.
Sure. Yeah, I don't even know what the hell I would have done. So you read Marauders 7.
I did.
Did you read Marauders 6?
I haven't read Marauders since the first or second issue.
Okay. 6 was excellent. 7, I was a little confused for some of it because some of it was very much about the fallout of that X-10 of Swords event that I didn't read, so I didn't know what was going on with that. But
that's true. I had noticed in our Discord channel that people were very bullish on this. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I'm going to, and I like the experiment of let's just read a random issue of something and sort of dive in that way. And I did have to do a little bit of Wikipedia. So I was like, okay, I've heard this Callisto name. I have no idea what's going on. And I quickly surmised, like, okay, there's a history with her and Storm and has to do with the Morlocks. Okay, I get that. And then once I sort of put that together, I was like, all right, if I look at this as a character piece and I see, Kate battling for the poor people of Madripoor's real estate rights, like, I got it. And I enjoyed it for what it was worth. I'm not, it didn't.
No, I didn't think it was bad. There was just parts like, it's like, wait, was this from? I don't know what's going on here. But even then, it was fine.
I am 30-something years into being confused by most of X-Men books, and so that's sort of part and parcel of the thing because it all so much refers to what happened not just recently but decades ago. Like this, it's this swirling miasma of relationships and histories that are far too. I mean, they're not probably that confusing if you care about it, but if you don't, it's not really worth the investment. But that being said, I'm reading through it and I'm like, yeah, Jerry Duggan's a damn good comic book maker. The scenes move along and they're interesting to watch the people with each other. The challenge is really just figuring out who the hell everybody was. Right. Whenever Emma Frost is in something, I'm never sure it's her for a while.
I didn't know that was her either. It's like, who's that?
At some point, somebody referred to her as EF, and I was like, oh, come on, make this easier.
So, no, I thought this was good. This is the best X-Men book by far, in my opinion.
I'll tell you what one of the motivators of me checking it out again is that, A, people were talking about it, but B, it was only issue 7. I figure all the other ones are in like the 20s now, because they're is this one actually monthly?
I think this is monthly, yeah.
It'd have to be. Yeah. And that, to me, has now become an attractive thing because if I don't read something for 4 months, it's okay, but it's not the same as not reading something for 8 months.
Right.
And I think that was the thing that that means they're taking their time with this in a certain way that some of the other books do not have the luxury of. I guess I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's a good book, and there was a lot of interesting things going on here, even if I had to sort of recalibrate what was going on. But it's good. It's definitely good.
I found myself thinking about Madripoor and how I don't understand it. Sometimes it is classified as like this complete den of thieves, and everybody, there's no law. And then this one seems to suggest that there's sort of an underclass and they're being taken over by the ruling class. And I think at one point, Kate, that's hard to say, is like, you're not going to turn this into a little Dubai. And I was like, well, isn't that kind of what it is?
Well, it was more like it's all this low life country, and what's been happening in this book is that this group of really rich bad guys has been one of the villain groups, and they're the ones who've moved in and they're sort of taking it over.
And that had been happening in Captain America as well, I think. Isn't that where like Lucan and
no, this is a different group. This is all in the X-Men books, and they sort of moved in on Madripoor to turn it into like the Dubai. So she's fighting for the rights of the criminal underclass to stay a criminal underclass, I guess.
Boy, you know what? In a comic book universe or world or whatever it is, where characters don't really get a chance to develop and change over time in a way that is more like growing up. Mm-hmm. It's interesting that Kitty Pryde is a character who gets to do that. Mm-hmm. Like she's she's been maturing between 20 and 40 now for 40 years.
Right.
But it kind of all makes sense and it works in a way, and they can play on her backstory where she's been through some shit and now she's not going to take it.
Well, the ones that only really get that growth are the teen characters, the sidekicks.
Yeah.
The ones who show up as kids, they can grow up into 20-somethings, whereas the main heroes can't. So that's the only ones who ever get the growth, which is probably why they're so popular.
Yeah, that's probably true.
I did the same thing you did. I finished my stack, and I was like, oh, God, I have nothing to add to the show. So I poked around what the people were talking about. I looked at the Patron Pick voting, and then the Time Traveler's Guide to Dating #1 was coming in hot in the voting. So I thought, well, that's interesting. I don't know what that is. So I Googled it, and the cover looked interesting. I don't know the backstory of this book, although I can make some
education. Publisher?
Well, that's part of the educated guess. So this was on Comixology. It was through Comixology Submit, which is where anyone can submit a comic. That's what we did for Dreadnought. If you're not like a major publisher already set up with a deal with them, anyone can submit to them. That's how super small publishers submit to Comixology.
I'm trying to think if there was another company who did that in the past.
And so the publisher, and I put the publisher in quotes of this book, is Finnish Films Inc.
Finnish like the end or Finland?
Like Finland. Although I looked it up, and Finnish Films is out of Cerritos, California. So all I know about them is there's an auto square there. It's clearly a film pitch, which is fine. That's what most comics are these days.
Actually, most film pitches are just comics.
So
I think it works the other way in volume.
So I thought, well, if it's some sort of like sci-fi dating thing, that might be interesting. I'll check out the first issue. It was only $2.99. I got it, and it was definitely not bad. So the creative team, Daniel Bruckner came up with the story. Todd Gilbert wrote it. Brendan McKinney drew it. Zachary Bruner did the inks and colors. Tom Orzechowski did the letters.
They got a real guy for lettering.
Yeah, you can do that. And it's sort of like a mishmash of a bunch of things that are familiar. There's elements like Palm Springs in here, and there's elements of multiplicity. Basically, this dude who works at basically Home Depot, assistant manager at Mulligan's, but it's basically Home Depot. He decides he's going to rob it. And he's got this whole plan to rob the store on the biggest sale weekend of the year when they're going to have lots of cash, even though there's no one buys anything with cash anymore. And it gets complicated by the fact that a secretive government agency accidentally sends their time-traveling toilet to the Home Depot. And that ends up mucking up his plans. And so the problem here is two things. One,
it's a lot already.
It's called A Time Traveler's Guide to Dating. There's absolutely no dating in this issue. He hires this woman mostly to be a distraction for the guard. She's very pretty. And the comic opens up and they've slept together, and then we go back in time. So clearly at some point they're going to sleep together. But it's not about dating. It's about this heist. And we don't even get to the time traveling in issue 1 yet.
Sounds like a structural problem, at least.
It wasn't bad. Issue. I want to make it clear. Yeah. I actually really enjoyed reading it. And I'll probably finish. It's a miniseries. I'll probably read the whole thing.
Do you think it's a good idea to give a title to something that creates an expectation and then hold back on that expectation, assuming that it will get people to continue with it? Or should you fulfill the expectation in some way at the start?
I think you need to sow the seeds at some level.
Right. The title can't be just the promise of.
And I would assume you would say, okay, well, they slept together, so the seeds are there. But then after that, there's actually nothing indicating any kind of interest from either of them and either one of them for the whole issue.
Are they interesting?
The guy is sort of your stock character. He's like, the sort of disaffected middle manager at this store gets passed over for a promotion, and he concocts this like super elaborate heist scheme, including a scale model in his house of the store. And
he's a crazy person.
Yeah, and it's like he's going through a lot to steal $300,000 in cash, which is not like he's can't run off to retire on. It was a little hokey. Some of the jokes were a little groan-inducing, but the art was good, and it's not like any comic I'm reading. It's just some dude trying to rob his own store. It feels more like Inner Space, that kind of story. Where like it's it's sort of a sci-fi tale, but it's not really a sci-fi tale. So it definitely wasn't bad, but it wasn't great either. I enjoyed it.
I'm realizing from the point of view of, like wanting to try new stuff, Comixology is probably somewhat more the way to go than like looking at that last section of Diamond.
Probably, yeah.
That's a wasteland at this point. It's just like bad action/sexy books.
Well, the thing is this, and you know this to be true as well as I do, in terms of digital comics, it's certainly a wasteland.
Is there any curation of it at all?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay.
Literally, the only reason I know about this is because of the patron vote. I don't know how the patrons know about it, but
yeah,
it'd be a good question for them. I looked it up. I Googled it. There was it might have been a Kickstarter. There was a whole bunch of names thanked at the beginning, but I couldn't find any kind of old listing for them. Like, I don't know what the deal is with this book, and I don't necessarily really care. I was just curious to see if this was something I should have known about, but I couldn't find anything.
But you're going on with it.
Well, because it was kind of fun, and now look, if the next time an issue comes out, it's like this is like 25 books by Plus. I probably won't read it.
Right. Yeah, there's an eyes bigger than the stomach thing for certain for a lot of those kind of things. I didn't put this on the list, but I'm still reading Devil's Red Bride. The 4th issue just came out, which is fine. This
was fine, and it was kind of enjoyable. I was really hoping for more like a romance comic, but I get it.
That really, it's true. The title sounds a lot better than like About Time or The Time Traveler's Wife or something like that, as opposed to
right. Like the cover is like they're in the garden section of the Home Depot store, and he's looking at her and she's looking at him, and I was like, well, none of this is in the book. Like, it doesn't even have to be exactly in the book, but there needs to be some indication in the book. I don't know. It was just weird.
So at the same time, and we'll move along quickly, I picked up and read The Union #2, written by Paul Grist and drawn aptly by Andrea DeVito.
Which I skipped. I read the first one.
Yeah, I didn't read the first one, which I think is actually an interesting point on this one. And maybe probably my favorite name of the week is Inker LeBeau Underwood.
It is a great name.
Nice, beautiful Underwood. Nolan Woodard on colors and Travis Lanham on letters. This is a Marvel series, I think nominally related to King in Black. And
yes, it is,
it's like a British national super team that comes together. And I did not read the first issue. But again, in this week, I was like, well, let's try a thing. And I actually think that I worked out just fine not to read the first issue because I understand exactly what happened in it. And this is where the interesting things happen.
Okay.
Now, you read the first one, so correct me if I'm wrong.
All right.
There's a thing going on. They put together a British super team. And then at the end, Britannia, the main character, dies.
Yes.
Oh, no, what will we do now?
Yes, that happened in the first issue.
So this is the aftermath of that when we get to actually spend time with the interesting characters. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And basically at the end of it, it falls apart because the Scottish one and the Welsh one and the Northern Irish one are like, fuck this. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
I thought it looked really good. I remember a long time ago, our co-founder Ron Richards was very into Paul Grist's Kane. It pushed it very hard on both of us, and both of us were like, "What the hell is this?"
Right.
Very, yeah. And I was kind of expecting that, but you know what? I thought it was a really well-written, well-paced, just professional comic book.
Yeah, I remember thinking it was very like solid in terms of that kind of thing. The first issue was very structurally solid. The characters,
just wasn't like weird for the sake of being weird, and it was, there was a story, and there were, and then also, other than Union Jack, who I really only recognize in terms of a costume, and it is a great costume for what it's worth.
Yep.
I didn't know who any of the characters were, but I got a very quick handle on them. The sort of Northern Ireland characters, very strange. They all are kind of strange. Like there was an imagination in here that. It was like reading like a really interesting Avengers book with characters that you don't know, and then it kind of falls apart. I actually really enjoyed it, and I like I said, like I read it, and I thought, oh wow, I didn't need to read #1 at all. Like that would have been. It sounds like for you, it's just like, oh, this is totally normal.
Are you going to read the rest of the miniseries?
I'll check out the next one.
I think it's 5 issues or something like that.
Yeah, I think I'll check out the next one. If this holds, then we'll get through it.
Okay. Well, I'm very excited, Josh, because it's the first time in 2021 we get to talk about our underwear. And I know how everyone missed that.
Yeah, I know. And this is the point where when talking about underwear, undergarments, things that are, one could say intimate, sometimes the conversations get weird. I'm just going to have to deal with that.
We're lifting that stigma of not talking about your underwear in public.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay.
Also, and what's nice too is that I think that by us talking about it, we're completely desexualizing it.
Oh, 100%.
Because a lot of underwear ads, even for men and women, this is, it's all about being sexy.
No.
But that when we talk about it, that's not happening.
It's functional.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. Nothing sexy about this conversation whatsoever. 2020 sucked. And there's a lot of things about it you'd probably want to forget about or leave behind. And one of the most important things is your old underwear. The stuff that maybe it's got holes in it, or the waistband is just dead, or
I got to say, in this copy, they said you're rolling into the new year with the same. These are the words that got me: bunching, chafing, and uncomfortable underwear. And I was like, "Oh, you're talking my language, buddy. What can you do to fix this?"
That's just what happens to underwear eventually. It wears out. So if you're rolling in 2021, you still got that old underwear. It may be time to check out Mack Weldon, because Mack Weldon is an essential piece of the daily routine for me and for Josh.
Well, can I tell you that I don't have that problem they're talking about, and I have to give the items credit, because to put this in a way that I am expanding, and the underwear is holding like Vince Vaughn in the old school. It's holding on those rings, still holding. I'm asking a lot of this fabric.
Yeah.
And so far it has not let me down.
So if you're out there in listener land and you're sitting there in your burlap underwear thinking, there's got to be a better way, this is uncomfortable, it hurts, kind of, Mack Weldon's for you. It's men's essentials. It's not just underwear, guys. It's socks, shirts, hoodies, underwear, polos, active shorts. Mack Weldon promises comfort and a consistent fit. They look great. They feel great. You can eventually work out. Well, I guess people can still work out in your homes. Or you can work out in them. Eventually, you can go out in them. Eventually, you can go on a date in them. All these things you see, if you get ready now, once the world opens up again, you'll be all set. It's for everyday life. It's everything you do in life. And the thing about Mack Weldon is it's not just underwear. They look at the technology of the clothing. So they got a wide range of customized fabrics that can keep up with you no matter what your day looks like. The 18-hour underwear, the silver, the air knit X, the dry knit, the warm knit, any kind of knit you need.
I think I have items of all of those except dry knit, unless they changed it. I have another relevant anecdote. It'll be short.
Okay.
I'm on the couch. I'm with my wife. She puts her hand.
Uh-oh.
No, it's again not sexy. Like under my sweatshirt and on the shirt, and she goes, "What shirt is this?" And I was like, "Oh, that's my Mack Weldon t-shirt." She's like, "That's a really nice feeling shirt." And I said, "I know."
And then it ended there.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and then we got back to watching Cobra Kai, and she
went
fell
back
asleep.
to sleep. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Then there's the Mack Weldon Blue program.
I thought it was going to go one way, but that's not what we do here.
Totally free loyalty program that Mack Weldon's created. Mack Weldon Blue. Level 1 gets you free shipping for life. Once you reach level 2 by spending $200, you get 20% off every order for the next year, which is crazy. So free shipping and 20% off every order. And the Mack Weldon guarantee, Mack Weldon wants you to be comfortable. So if you don't like your first pair of underwear, you can keep them and they'll still refund you, no questions asked. 20% off, free shipping, no questions asked on your first pair of underwear. You can't beat it. There's no reason not to try it. For 20% off first order, visit MackWeldon.com/iFanboy. Enter promo code iFanboy at your checkout. That's MackWeldon.com/iFanboy. Promo code iFanboy for 20% off. Mack Weldon, reinventing men's basics.
And again, I just want to, this was an affectionate thing. She was cold, sure. I'm warm.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, get your damn cold hands out of there right. Was really how it started. And everyone understands this, who is with one cold person and one warm person, or a pet, for example. The pet doesn't love me. I'm very warm.
Serial number 1, the new book from Terry Moore, Abstract Studios. I was very excited to read this because I love Terry Moore. And this is the young girl character from the last couple of stories. But I felt like this was like a preview of an issue as opposed to an issue.
Yeah, it was very vague first issue thing.
But it also felt like it just ended immediately. And I was like, wait, what? It's over?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. If not for a pre-existing relationship with a creator, I don't know if there was enough of a hook here to get somebody.
No, if this was some random person who I never heard of, I would probably read the second issue. But
right.
It was just like.
But I'm sure that he's a person who very much relies on an existing audience to kickstart.
And nothing in here was bad. It just felt like there was not enough here. It was, a girl kills a guy and then changes out of a disguise, and then the girl, what is her name?
I don't know. I didn't even put together that was her until you said it.
No. I don't think it was her in the beginning.
No, I know that. I spent a lot of time going back and forth trying to figure out the little girl. I now that you say it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's completely obvious. For some reason in my mind, I had just thought this was not connected to all the other stuff, but obviously it was. But the first woman, I just spent a lot of time trying to figure out who it was and if it was the same person, if we were looking at a flashback or whatever it was.
Yeah, I don't know who that person is yet.
Because he draws women and they all, they all share characteristics. I'll say it this way. And then early on, the woman is in a disguise and changes into a different. So now I got one woman who looks like two different women in a Terry Moore book. That can be problematic. So I went back over it a few times.
And then it appears as if the little girl from the last series is living in a VW van and having weird dreams, and then is told about the incident from the beginning of the book, and she takes off in her van, and I was like, oh, cool, and then it ends. It's like,
yep.
It's like she revs off, and I was like, awesome, and then
there basically wasn't context for anything.
No, and it just, it was a very light first issue.
Yep.
So I'm looking forward to more. I
Yeah.
just was very excited for it, and then I was like, oh, man, give me more, Terry. More?
Yep.
I didn't even mean to say that way.
Using the same strategy that I used on King in Black, I used on Future State, and I had a very hard time finding anything I wanted to read out of that in terms of sort of creators who get me excited. But I read Future State Dark Detective #1, and I read it because Matthew Rosenberg's name again was on it, and it turns out he did. I don't know if it's the backup story because they were both lengthy.
Well, it's the co-feature.
Yeah, that's the word. That's the word. I haven't heard that in a while, but it was the second one. So the first one, I was a little confused. We had it's called Bruce Wayne is a Dead Man by Mariko Tamaki with art by Dan Mora and Jordi Belair in colors. Really good looking
Great-looking book.
It just felt like another...
It's interesting. So I don't want to go too deep into this one because I do want to talk about the second one too. So I read all the Future State books again, and I don't know why I'm punishing myself.
Wow.
But I'm doing it. I'm apparently repenting for something I'm not aware of. It's just so... I think, first of all, and I don't want to make this sweeping statement until I've read all the first issue, but I feel like DC dodged a huge bullet. If this had been the new DC universe, it would have been a disaster of epic proportions. It would have
way more than the New 52.
It would have been like gone down in history as like one of the worst decisions ever made. I just don't understand why they decided to go with like the Blade Runner future.
They're all like mediocre Elseworld stories.
Yeah.
That don't feel like a bold new start. It's just
nothing's compelling. Nothing makes sense because they're dropping you in. And in a sense, that could be fun sometimes, but like, I don't have any backstory to what's happening, so therefore I don't really care. Like, who this?
There's nothing special.
Yeah.
No, you know what? You're right. I went to mention this, but there was definitely a theme that was going through almost all of the books that I read this week, and it was I don't know what is going on. And I mean this in a way like I was thinking, well, is this me? And I thought I'm pretty good at reading comic books. I think I can objectively say that. But over and over reading books this week, I just was like, what? I don't know what's happening. And it feels like on top of all these books being some weird reboot, like they're right, they drop you right in. There's no context, there's no backstory, and you're left to figure out what's real, what's connected to what we read before, if anything.
The thing that's important to note is that it can be great to drop you in the middle of a story. The problem is...
Well, it's how you do it.
It's how you do it. You have to leave the proper breadcrumbs, but also, we all know this is only 2 or 3 issues, and then it's over. So, like, I don't care about the magistrate who's taking over Gotham City, because he's going to be gone in 2 issues, and I'm never going to hear about him again. The timeline isn't long enough to really build out a mystery when you're only telling 3 issues.
But also, these concepts aren't being introduced in a way. Everybody's trying to be cool. Everybody's trying to, respect the audience and slowly reveal things in an organic way. And it works sometimes. But other times you have to remember the medium. And, comic books is a thing where every character has to say every other character's name, even though you wouldn't actually speak like that, so that the people in it are not lost. And I feel like that is getting lost a lot by whatever this generation of writers is, or just the zeitgeist of how comics are being done right now. And it's problematic.
So in every other Batman book, Bruce Wayne has been dead, thought to be dead.
And that was confusing also.
And that's why Tim Fox is Batman. And so here, Bruce is actually alive. He faked his death and he's running around as Batman. The other thing is, how in the New 52, they were like, no more underpants outside the costume. Well, apparently in Future State, it's no capes. None of the heroes are wearing capes. Robin's not wearing a cape. Superman's not wearing a cape. Batman's not wearing a cape. No capes.
This Batman looked like the redesign that Capullo did.
Yeah, a little
It
bit.
looked very related to that yellow belt thing. That's what
I do want to
thought.
say that this looked great. I
Yes,
think Dan Moore
100%.
is terrific.
Yep.
I believe this is the team that's taking over Detective Comics. Tamaki and Mora, so I'm excited for that. But anyway, that was just my overall reaction. I was like, why are we doing it? Like why do we make all these choices? Like, anyway, let's talk about that another time.
It needed editing.
The co-feature is by Matthew Rosenberg and Carmine Di Giandomenico, who we love. And it's a grifter story because they keep trying to fold in Wildstorm into the DC universe, which I guess they're going to make Grifter a major Gotham character, according to all the promotional art they put out of all the characters standing around grifters among the Bat family now. So
you know what?
Let's do that for a
I
while.
like Grifter. And I think Matthew Rosenberg wrote a great Grifter.
Hold on.
I think he's a...
You love the wisecracking blonde character?
You know what? He is this like combination. He's somewhere between Logan and Hellblazer.
You've always loved Grifter. I'm just...
Yeah, no, I think he's fun. But I also think that, out of all these books, like when he wrote Grifter, I was like, I recognize this character.
Mm-hmm.
Like I like he's the same character. That Bruce Wayne in that other story wasn't Bruce Wayne I knew.
Right.
Bruce Wayne that I knew wouldn't do that.
Right.
Like, that's what I kept thinking. And so when Grifter shows up here, it's almost like, yeah, we recognize that all this is bullshit, but I always thought it was always bullshit. And then he has it was a really fun, arrest breakout, story with I think it's Luke Fox.
Yep.
Who was Lucius Fox's
He used
son.
to be Batwing.
Yeah. But it's turned sort of cautious, we'll say.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was fun and it was beautiful.
Carmine Di Giandomenico is great.
Yep. And so like I could remove again, just like that pick of the week. And it is coincidence to me that these are the same writer on both of them, but I didn't need to know everything else was going on. He focused on the characters and the adventure and not the overall, what's going on in the bigger world, because that makes it not interesting to me.
In terms of art, this was a terrific issue.
Absolutely.
The first story was what it was. I didn't hate the first story, but it was just like there's a whole bigger problem with Future State that's transcends everything.
Yep. I read Big Girls #6, which is, if I don't know if it's the last issue ever. It was sort of vague, but it is the last issue of this sort of first arc as they're doing it. This is art and story by Jason Howard, who I've really enjoyed as a creator, who sort of came up, from being, first known as being an artist for The Astounding Wolfman with Robert Kirkman, and since then has really, I think, become a better artist and also a storyteller in his own right, and sort of just doing all of his own stuff from old cloth, which I like. I thought that this was pretty good, lacking in some areas, but a really good concept and visually really fun to read, because basically you have these huge giant women who are there to protect the cities that are left from the boys who have mutated into giant monsters.
Right.
And then we find out that there was more to it than that. Mm-hmm. It was fun, and it's like suitably melodramatic. It hit those notes like it was supposed to, but largely it was like drawing these giant things in cities, kaiju. If they
You
were
just love scale.
I do love scale in comic books, because I think that that does it in a way that you can't in cinema so much, because you can make it into a piece of art, and that putting things into that perspective is always really interesting. Yeah, but it was a nice little world, and there were some surprising and very silly things that happened at the end. It wasn't perfect, but it was a fun little series.
So those are the books we wanted to talk about, but at patreon.com/iFanboy, if you're a patron of the show, you can vote to add a book to the rundown. And this week, the overwhelming favorite was Ha #1 from Image Comics, W. Maxwell Price, Vanessa Del Rey, Chris O'Halloran, Good Old Neon on letters. Good Old Neon.
I double-checked that. I thought, okay, Good Old Neon.
This is apparently the team behind Ice Cream Man. I think we read the first issue of Ice Cream Man. I believe the first issue of Ice Cream Man was a Patron Pick also. I didn't read any more of that book. I didn't know anything about this. I just saw the patrons talking, and I think somebody said, well, it's a horror book, but maybe they'll like it, which I think is going to be what we're going to inscribe on the Patron Memorial Tribute statue one day. So when I went into it, I was not excited, because I was like, it's a horror book. I don't want to read a horror book.
It's not a horror book.
Well, that's the thing. So about halfway through, I was like, I don't think this is a horror book.
No.
And so I think this is a bunch of short stories about clowns. I think that's what this series is.
Really?
Yeah, because the next issue is about a totally different character, clown character.
Oh. That's good because I already saw the movie Joker.
Well, I thought this was interesting. So this issue opens up with a family sitting around a table, and the father's in a clown costume. He's sort of like he works at some sort of rundown amusement park, and his wife hates his job, and his kids don't care. And then he gets laid off because the place is closing down, and his best friend mugs him for his money because they're all in trouble.
That was the most interesting thing I thought in the book is that the boss pays him. And there's no like shady stuff. The boss is like, I'm really sorry. Here's some money. And then right as he's leaving, he's like, watch it because there's a lot of animals out there that will steal it from you. And then immediately his best friend beats him up and steals his money. And I was like, what world is this? Like, what's happened? That was the most interesting thing.
But he had hidden his paycheck in his sock like the boss told him. So he goes to the bank to deposit his final check. And then there's a robbery. And for whatever reason, he just decides not to listen to the robbers. And so they shoot him in the head. And there's an interesting sequence where the bullets going through his brain. It reminded me a lot of a Tobias Wolff short story with a very similar idea.
Look at Mr. Fancy Pants over here.
And then I thought if the story had ended on that shot of him on the floor dead, I would have been like, this was a really interesting and bizarre short story, and I kind of really like it. But then it keeps going where he pops up, and he's not dead, and he beats up the bank robbers, and then he goes home, and you can tell obviously the bullets affected him because he sees his family now as balloon people. But I thought if it had ended with him dead on the floor, I thought it would have been a much stronger story. And I realized they wanted to have an action sequence and the whole bizarre ending, but like I thought it would have been this weird character piece, and then that would have been that. But I didn't dislike it after that, but I thought it would have been stronger if it ended that way.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't a horror movie, and I
other than him surviving a gunshot to the brain, but
yeah, but that's still more or less
horror really
theoretically possible. I don't think it was bad, but I didn't ultimately didn't really care. Mm-hmm. I thought it looked really interesting. But I really did the first bit. I just felt like I was like, this is just Joker with a family, and I didn't like that movie. I think it says everything to you that I thought the most important thing, the most interesting thing was when the boss said, like he's talked about the fact that the world was really, very violent and scary, and like New York in the 70s, which was also in the Joker. I can't say I have a lot of cogent thoughts on it because I just sort of read through it. I didn't hate it. I didn't really like it. And then it's interesting that it's a short, like if it's an anthology kind of thing, and this is it. Mm-hmm. That actually makes it more interesting.
Well, issue 2 is there's a female clown looking in the mirror.
Mm-hmm. Well, these people all meet up and become a clown team.
I think I looked it up on Image, and it's like an anthology about clowns. I don't know if W. Maxwell Prince is working something out. Well, W. Maxwell Prince was the writer of Ice Cream Man. Vanessa Del Rey was not the artist in Ice Cream Man. No, and yes, that's stronger. But yeah. I know that came out. I read the first issue and I thought, well, I don't know what this is, but I know that I don't like it. And then, I didn't really hear anything else about it. Honestly, this is not even a note on the quality. So if you're the writer, and you're like, like it's just not my thing. Like it was not a thing that I would want. And this sort of feels like that too. Although this is a little more interesting than that was. I didn't dislike it. I didn't love it, but I didn't dislike it. So I think for ratings out of 5, I'm going to give it a 3.5. 3. It's a generous 3. You gonna read issue 2? No. You are though. I don't know. I mean, it's an anthology. It's not like it's I don't know. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll read issue 3. I don't know. I'm not committing to anything. We don't make any guarantees of commitment. So Patreon.com/iFanboy. Anyone can vote to add a book to the rundown. Yeah, let's talk about Patreon.com/iFanboy. A very interesting thing happened last week. Mm-hmm. I said to the people, listen, you all make your own choices with your money. It's fine, but what's going to happen is, like a stern but fair parent, this Media Splode show is in danger of going away. And I don't like to talk a lot about mandates, but I believe that we received a sort of low-grade mandate from the listening audience, and they said, well, we don't want that to happen. And many people either upped or re-upped and became part of the patron family. New patrons joined as well. I was kind of touched. Yeah, and that's good because this January Media Split is going to be all about The Mandalorian, so we would have had to miss that conversation. Ooh. Which would have been sad, but we didn't. And I was shocking. I mean, we were right at the precipice of not covering the Media Split anymore, and then all of a sudden, boom, you guys showed your support, and we were honestly taken aback.
Early. Like, I
Yeah.
think that was on like Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Like, like that was a lot more. I was genuinely surprised. So thank you for that. It kind of lets us know, like, oh, you really like us.
Other
These are
content,
Sally
at least.
Field moment. So listen, what is Patreon? You all know. I'll go through this quickly. You already did the thing. It is the way to support this show. With regular donations for the content and stuff like we're doing. It's made possible. The Patron Pick, the Patron Powers, which have become like mainstays in the show, I think have really added to it. The talk explodes, the book explodes, the media explodes, the YouTube content going all back up there. Those are all direct results of people becoming part of this, because at every level of sort of support on a monthly basis, there's another thing unlocked, and that's where we're up to. The next thing we're looking at is adding a new show that we're going to talk about, the 80s cartoon G.I. Joe in some way.
We may look at the stretch goals and reevaluate it and rejigger, and we move them around, and maybe we'll, change things. We're not sure yet. We're going to take a look.
Maybe you want some other kind of show that.
Maybe we'll make Josh go back full time, and this is the next stretch goal.
Wow. You're going to have to bring that up considerably. There's also the Patron Facebook group and the iFanboy Patron Discord server, which, they're fun communities in their way in which we will show up, certainly in Discord from time to time.
You were in Discord a lot this week.
I always forget it's there. It's like I minimize the little window, and then it doesn't. I have the notifications set weird, and then I open it and I sort of go through there. I like it. It very much reminds me. It's kind of the closest thing that we've had to the old Revision 3 forums.
Yes.
In a while, and you sort of get to know some of the people a little more and hang out, and we need friends too. So it's fun to be there. It's casual and fun, and there's a little something for everybody, and I think it's great. I think it's I don't remember who thought of doing that. It wasn't me.
No, it was actually a suggestion from the patrons. We were gonna do a Slack channel for the patrons, and then they were they were like, "What do we rather do a Discord server?" So that we had a vote.
Oh,
Discord beat Slack, and then that's how it happened.
I think that was the right call.
Yeah, I get too many Slack pings during the day.
It's true. It's true. Keep that separate from work.
Yeah.
iFanboy@threadless.com is where you can get shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, sundries, shower curtains, bath mats, phone cases. All in all, I have no idea. If you were to ask me, like, what is the definition for sundries, I don't think I could tell you.
We did this bit before, and we looked it up. I don't remember what it was.
Okay.
Start 21 with a fresh bit. That's all I'm saying.
I think it's just that I still don't know. There are 8 designs up there. It turns out that this pandemic is either a boon to creativity or the opposite. I think with our designs, it's been the opposite. And so we're still looking for that next idea. We don't want to just fill it up with stuff because right. We need to put something else out there. I think that's the way that we approach it. I like that. If you don't want to deal with any of that, there's ifanboy.com/support. You can make a direct donation via PayPal. If you don't want to deal with any of that other stuff, you can go to ifanboy.com/Amazon. You'll find links to buy all the books on the Booksplode and in the Pick of the Week shows. And that is all. Thank you so much, everybody. That was a great week for that.
Another way we say thank you to patrons is that they give at the $5 or higher level, and they get their own superpower live on the show, like Dan Cox. Thanks to Dan Cox for being a patron. Dan Cox's power is that he has the ultimate consumer regret power. And what I mean by that is...
Wow, I'm excited about what's about to happen.
If he buys something, he's like, oh man, this is about the wrong thing, or this is the wrong... It immediately disappears, and the money returns to his bank account.
Wow.
It goes back to where it came from, fresh and new, unopened,
No one is financially harmed.
No. The inventory software is updated automatically. It's like it never happened.
I like this. Is there a statute of limitations?
Yeah, it's got to be like immediate. Like it's like, it wears off after you unbox it and you go, man, this is the wrong size, or this is the wrong thing, or
right.
This actually doesn't work in this room. Boom, gone.
Can I and I'm just spitballing here. Can it be that, say that you buy a thing and you don't have a chance to install it for a little while. Then when you finally get around to it, you open the box and you realize this isn't going to work at all. But like the 30 days is up. It's not that you waited, it's just you didn't have the ability. Does it work then?
I think it would still work because you hadn't actually looked at it yet.
It's not like you owned it and used it for a long time.
No,
and then thought, this wasn't the best option.
It's kind of like he can't replace a TV because it's out of date. It's like, he bought the TV, he had to wait a month to install it because for whatever reason,
right.
And then it's like the immediacy of his dealing with it.
Okay. And does it just work for him, or does it work for his whole family?
Just for him.
Okay. So theoretically, if he was married and his wife or husband had bought something on their card,
Right.
it doesn't work.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I wonder if it gets passed on to his children.
Maybe we'll find out when they get their own buying power.
Raj Patel knows all the angles. I see what you're doing, pal. I see that angle. I see what you're playing. Very good at chess, for example.
Pool.
Very good. Yep, pool at literal angles in that
Billiards.
instance.
Yeah.
Or snooker. But also, the stock market, any personal dealings, he sees and he knows all the angles. You're not going to get one over on Raj, buddy.
That's great.
Yeah. He knows all the angles.
Thanks to Dan and Raj for being patrons, patreon.com/iFanboy. Josh from Indiana Joe from Indiana writes to Josh and says, Josh, are you going to get the original Thunderbolts omnibus when it comes out? I'll answer for Josh, no.
Yep, that's correct. I would go with very most likely no. Because it's gonna ruin the magic.
You're not a big book buyer, like a big book buyer, meaning large size books.
I only because I don't ever end up reading them.
Right.
That really has they're beautiful objects. I just finally, man, I got all 3 Absolute Preacher books, so that I should have this. But realistically, will I ever actually read through all of them? Maybe, but it will take years.
You'll take them off the shelf and leaf through them.
Yeah. But even, I have a lot of books, and I sometimes I get a real guilty feeling, that I don't, I try to read all of them, at least once, but there's a lot, and there's a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't like to, it feels like a waste, in a way. At a certain point, there's so many that you're like, what am I going to do with these? But so I reserve it for really special things. Mm-hmm. I think when I do that, and
you do love Thunderbolts.
I know, but I also, I love it as a thing that happened a long time ago. It's not like I would buy and wear a lot of Thunderbolts t-shirt. I would wear one. If there was one really great first issue Thunderbolts t-shirt, I probably would wear that.
With
but it's not like
on it.
Yeah. Well, he's a Nazi. That's kind of
that's
fraud
true.
now. Maybe like from issue 7 when Hawkeye joins. I'm not.
Let me tell you what's in this omnibus, and you can decide. So it comes out in April. It collects Thunderbolts 0 through 33, the original 1997 series.
That's great.
Thunderbolts Annual 1997. Thunderbolts Distant Rumblings, number 1 from 1997. Incredible Hulk 449. Spider-Man Team Up, number 7. Heroes for Hire, number 7. Captain America and Citizen V Annual, number 1998. Avengers, number 12. And some material from Tales of the Marvel Universe, number 1 from 1997.
I'll tell you this. It sounds great. And what I would do is pick it up in a store and go, that's really cool. But I wouldn't ever sit down and read it. Mm-hmm. Ever. I would never do that. It just doesn't fit. But it's really cool. And I hope that there are people who really do have a chance to enjoy that and get it, because they're great, great comic books.
Yeah. So you're one of your favorite books for a while.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good stuff.
Ken from the Great White North says, which creators, writer, and artists are your favorite, not necessarily the best, on Batman, Superman, and the Avengers? The writer and artist don't need to have worked on those books at the same time.
I think that my answer is the same in terms of writers for both Superman and Avengers, and that is some combination of Kurt Busiek and Mark Waid.
I was definitely going to say Kurt Busiek and
leaning
George
more
Perez
towards Busiek
for the Avengers.
Yeah.
Although
sure.
it's hard not to go back to the Roger Stern era. The Roger Stern, Buscema, or even before that, though, John Byrne.
I was going to say, if I had to pick an artist for both of those books, again, it would be difficult not to say John Byrne. And I know John Byrne is more associated with West Coast Avengers, but I tend those Avengers teams in the 80s are, they're Avengers.
For Superman, for me, it's John Byrne. It's writer and artist John Byrne. And for Avengers, I'm going to say Busiek and Perez. I'm just going to see. It's my favorite run of the Avengers. There's been so many great runs of the Avengers. I'm not denigrating any of those runs. I'm just saying that's my favorite run.
It is a really good one. It's probably that for me too.
And then for Batman, it's tough, obviously, because there's been a lot of great people on this. So I'm going to pick a team that work together because
let's leave aside like Frank Miller or something like that. Because I feel like
Mazzucchelli,
yeah.
It's really hard, but I think if I had to go in my heart of hearts, it's probably Alan Grant, Norm Breyfogle. That era of Batman. They did both Batman and Detective Comics together. was terrific. And look, there's been great runs by Rucka and Brubaker and Snyder and Capullo and Winnick did a great run. But
yeah.
when I look back on Batman comics that I really, really loved and the world building they were doing, and look, Chuck Dixon obviously is...
Yeah, I was thinking of him too.
But when I think back on the great Batman runs that I enjoyed a hell of a lot, it was Grant and Breyfogle's various runs in the various books.
I think I have a harder time with artists on Batman because there's so many. And like I think about, if I had to pick an artist, it's easy to say Breyfogle or Jim Aparo is sort of what I see in my head. I think writer, I got to go with Greg Rucka. I think he was the guy who did the longest run that I was the most.
It's an embarrassment of riches to choose from.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you could easily just be like Neil Adams.
Right.
You know.
Right. Bill Finger, Dick Sprang. I mean, it goes all the way back. It's embarrassment.
Yeah. In my time of reading, actually like actively reading
Denny
comics
O'Neil.
as they were coming out, those Greg Rucka, Cataclysm, Aftershock, and Gotham.
The whole
Central.
Bruce Wayne murderer storyline, Fugitive, the stuff with all that stuff was great. It was a great run. Then you add in, fold in Gotham Central from the side, like all that stuff was great. You know
what's interesting is though, if you say Greg Rucka to me, Batman is not the first thing that comes to mind by a long shot.
Sure.
And it was just like talking about it in this way that made me sort of think about it. And that, that's the thing.
It was great.
And more so than Brubaker, I think, even though they did some stuff together.
It's a really great run. They were at some point they were writing at the same time, Batman and Detective Comics.
Yep. It's interesting because I thought that this question would be harder than it was to answer.
Well, if we really had to put pen to paper and like make a list, it would be hard. I think to do like a definitive creative team list, which might be a fun hangout discussion.
I've always thought that the best Superman run that never happened would have been if Darwin Cook had written and drawn the Superman series.
Yeah.
So I can say that he's done my favorite takes on a lot of the DC characters. Kind of including Superman and New Frontier, but he never did it like the regular series, so I don't count him in that way.
Sure. Contact at iFanboy.com. That's how Ken and Joe got on the show. Thanks for writing. And we got a lot of great emails this week. So people are starting 2021 with a bang. Wanted to mention real quick, we talked about it last time, Wonder Woman 1984, our review of the movie's back in the feed somewhere. We released it around Christmas time, right after Christmas time, I guess. And you can find that behind there. Feed me and Ryan Haupt and Ron Richards talked about it, and we had three, I don't want to say wildly different, but three different takes on the film, as opposed to the first film, which we all loved. We had three entirely different takes on the film, I think. Well, two are similar. It's a very polarizing movie, I think.
Haven't watched it, and my interest in doing so has diminished greatly.
Well, I don't know what to tell you.
I had always had the thought all along that the first Wonder Woman movie was kind of a perfect moment. Such to the extent that I don't even really want to watch it again. I just went in no expectations, had fun watching it, and it came out and everybody else seemed to like it. And I thought, that's great. Leave it there.
This one is, yeah.
Yeah. There is a Talksplode interview podcast scheduled in January.
This is where I put the ticking time clock sound.
Yeah, I want everybody at home to know that Connor's very into me getting it done. And I am too, but I've had a little trouble booking
Listen, all you're going to do is get 6 in the year. We promised 6, so if you got to do 3 in March, that's your business.
And to be honest, the scheduling and getting the right people on last year was a challenge, but I was so happy with the people I got to talk to last year that I am willing to take my time rather than going, I got to get a show out, and just bring on somebody I know, or just, like I want to talk to people who I think are interesting to talk to, and I like my track record with it, so I'm going to keep working with those stats. You'll get your shows. I promise that. There's no doubt in my mind.
There will be 6 in 2021. Whether there will be every other month like clockwork will be up to
I have to stick to that. Otherwise, I'll put them all off. And then in December, I'll be like, I got to do 6 because that's how Josh does homework. And then Booksplode. What's a Booksplode?
Booksplode in February is Jack Kirby, King of Comics by Tom Scioli, the original graphic novel that came out last year that I just finished reading. I'm very excited to talk about it with Josh. Yeah. Jack Kirby, King of Comics. If you want to read along at home, just to prove it, I think it's a must-read for any comic fan. So if you want to read along with us, it's a big old hardcover OGN, and it's not cheap, but it's definitely worth your money. So Jack Kirby, King
absolutely
of Comics.
Worth it, and I think that it will make the show that we do more interesting. So it's not going to be like a review show where we tell you whether you should read it or not. Like, you should read it, and then we're going to talk about it.
Mm-hmm. So that'll be in February at some point. So you have a month to do your homework.
Yeah, but it's delightful homework. Anyway, get over to iFanboy.com. You can find all of our shows, our vast history of comic book writing, and from all of the talented writers. I dug up an old schedule I found in our shared Google Docs of like this was on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and what time everything came out. And this was near the end.
Or old content schedule, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, there's a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very sort of detailed and interesting, but that stuff's all there, man. So you can go check that stuff out. We'll remain vastly proud of those things. You want to know what the pick of the week is before it comes out, or what else is going on that is relevant? Not a lot, but if there's something we need to post, we will post at facebook.com/iFanboy or at iFanboy on Twitter and at iFanboyComics on Instagram. You can find out the pick of the week before it comes out. You can find the best of the weekend panels and occasionally some other little things in here and there.
It's going to be a rough panels week this week.
Yeah, it really was. I got like 2. You can follow us individually, CS Kilpatrick on Instagram and J Flanagan on Instagram. Finally, subscribe to our YouTube page at youtube.com/iFanboy, the segment that I always forget to update here. So are these updated?
Yes. No, those are old. Ron reviewed Kill Your Boyfriend in an iFanboy mini for Grant Morrison week. I think that's the end of Grant Morrison week. Josh interviewed Alex Robinson, and then a friendship was born. And then Robert Kirkman at San Diego Comic-Con 2008. So the next week's going to be all San Diego Comic-Con 2008 content.
I love that show. That was great.
That was the show. I believe we forgot the plate for the tripod, so I had to hold the camera the whole time.
And it was a long talk.
It was a long talk. I think we got to his apartment and realized we didn't have the plate to attach the camera to the... Because the plate was usually just stuck to the camera.
Yeah.
And we needed a plate to attach to the tripod, and it wasn't there, and it was like, oh, fuck me.
That's pretty much how they shot The French Connection.
Right, exactly.
From what I understand.
I mean, the car chase in this one's very similar to that one.
Right. We didn't have permits. I know that much.
Yeah. Oh, for sure not. Never had permits. If you like the show, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. We appreciate that. Any show you listen to, if you can leave a star rating for them, it helps people find shows. The more ratings, the better. They would appreciate that as much as we would. Even better than that, word of mouth. Tell your friends, your mom, your kid, your letter carrier, anyone who you think might be interested in podcasts. Tell them about podcasts. Tell them about iFanboy. We do appreciate it. And it's helped people find the show too. And we do thank everyone who does that. And this is the show. And I am Connor.
And I am Josh. That's the end of the program.